Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Davis, and I'm 29 years old. 3 weeks ago, I thought my biggest worry was giving a good presentation at work. That changed when I came home 2 days early from a conference in Miami to find my front yard dug up, my fence torn down, and my little sister Rachel standing next to a huge pile of dirt with a shovel in her hands. She looked at me and smiled really big. "We're making your backyard perfect before we move in permanently," she said. Her boyfriend Mark and his whole family were there too, and they all started laughing like it was the funniest joke ever. If you're watching this, please leave a comment about what you would do in my situation, and hit that subscribe button to see how I handled this crazy mess. Let me tell you about my house first, because it's really important to understand why this hurts so much. I work as a computer programmer for a small company in Tampa. This house, my cute little 2-bedroom place with a big backyard, took me 8 years to save up for. I lived in a tiny room with 3 roommates, worked extra jobs on weekends, and ate ramen noodles for dinner most nights. I finally bought my house 3 years ago, and every month I pay the bank a lot of money to keep it. Every light bulb, every piece of furniture, everything came from my own work and saving. Rachel is 4 years younger than me, and ever since we were little kids, she always got whatever she wanted from our mom and dad. They thought she was the most special little girl in the world, and never said no to her. I remember when I was 10 and Rachel was 6, she broke my favorite toy on purpose because she was mad at me. When I told our parents, they said, "Jenny, she's your baby sister. You need to be nice and let her play with your things." That's how it always was in our house. My books became her books, my games became her games, my birthday presents somehow became things we both shared. I learned to just accept it because I wanted our parents to be happy with me. As we got older, it kept happening. In middle school, she borrowed my bike and left it at the park where someone stole it. In high school, she took money from my piggy bank to buy candy for her friends. When I got my first apartment after college, she showed up one day with all her clothes in garbage bags because she had a fight with mom and dad. She said she'd stay for just one night, but she lived there for 4 months and never paid for food or helped with rent. Even though Rachel always took my stuff and never asked first, I kept being nice to her because she's my family. Our parents always told me, "Jenny, Rachel really looks up to you. You need to set a good example and take care of her." 6 weeks ago, Rachel called me crying really hard. She and her boyfriend Mark had to leave their apartment because they didn't pay rent for 2 months. Mark lost his job at the pizza place, and Rachel only worked part-time at a hair salon, so they didn't have enough money. They needed somewhere to sleep for just a little while until Mark found another job. I wasn't sure about it because Mark and I never got along very well. He always acted like he didn't like me, maybe because I had a house and a good job when he didn't. He would say mean things about my work and how people like me don't know what real hard work is like. But I couldn't let my sister sleep outside or in her car. "You can sleep on my couch in the living room," I told her. But just for a few weeks while Mark looks for work. Rachel was so happy and thankful. "You're the best big sister ever. We'll be super quiet and you won't even know we're there. We'll help clean the house too." A week after they moved in, Rachel said something that made me worried. She told me that Mark's parents, the Williams family, also needed a place to stay because their landlord was making them move out. Before I could say anything, she quickly added, "I told them they could visit us here sometimes."
That's okay, right?
They're like family now. I really wanted to say no because my house is small and 5 grown-ups is way too many people. But Rachel looked at me with those sad puppy dog eyes she used on our parents when she wanted ice cream or a new toy. "Fine," I said, "but only for short visits, not living here." Then my boss called me with big news. Our company was starting a new project with a company in Seattle, and she wanted me to go there for 10 days to set everything up. This was a really big deal for my job, and if I did well, I might get promoted to team leader. The night before I left, I sat down with Rachel and Mark to talk about the rules. "Please keep my house clean, don't have loud parties, call me if anything breaks, and remember this is just temporary until you find your own place." Rachel nodded her head up and down really fast. "Of course, we'll take super good care of everything. Just focus on your important work trip and don't worry about anything here." As I packed my suitcase that night, I had no idea that Rachel was already planning to take over my house completely, whether I said yes or not. Seattle was really pretty with all the mountains and water everywhere. My hotel room had a nice view, and if things were normal at home, I would have enjoyed taking pictures and exploring the city. But from the very first day of my trip, something felt wrong. The first few days went really well with my work meetings. The people at the Seattle company liked my ideas for the new project, and my boss was already talking about giving me more responsibility when I got back to Tampa. "Keep doing such good work, Jenny, and we'll talk about that promotion," she told me after a really successful presentation. But when I tried to text Rachel to tell her about how well things were going, she barely answered me. When she did write back, she just said things like, "Everything's fine," or "House is good." When I tried to video call to see how she was doing, she always had an excuse like, "I'm about to leave," or "The internet is really slow right now." 4 days into my trip, my phone rang, and it was Mr. Garcia, my next-door neighbor. He's a really nice old man who sometimes gets my packages when I'm not home, and I help him carry his groceries when his back hurts. "Jenny, I wanted to ask if everything is okay at your house," he said, sounding worried. "What do you mean? Why are you asking?" "Well, there's been a lot of noise for the past 3 days, loud banging, drilling sounds, and it looks like people are tearing up your backyard. There are big trucks parked on your street every day, and I saw men carrying what looked like fence posts and concrete bags." My stomach felt sick. "Did you talk to my sister?" I asked him. "I tried to, dear. She said you were having some landscaping work done while you were away. Is that right?" I tried to sound calm, even though I was really scared inside. "Yes, that's right. Thank you for checking, Mr. Garcia." As soon as I hung up, I called Rachel right away. She didn't answer the first 4 times I called. On the 5th try, she finally picked up and sounded annoyed. "What do you want, Jenny? I'm really busy right now." "What's happening in my house?" Mr. Garcia said there's construction going on. There was quiet for a few seconds, and I could hear people talking in the background. "Oh, we're just doing some yard work," Rachel said in a fake happy voice. "Mark's parents are helping us. We wanted to surprise you with a really nice backyard when you come home." "Yard work doesn't make drilling noises and need concrete bags," I said. "Mark's dad was just fixing that broken part of your fence and planting some new flowers. Nothing big." Something about the way she said it didn't sound right to me. "Rachel, please don't change anything about my house or yard without asking me first." "Of course not. We're just making it prettier. I promise. Listen, I have to go now. We'll talk later, okay?" She hung up before I could say anything else. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I kept thinking about the noises Mr. Garcia heard, the way Rachel's voice sounded fake, and all those trucks parked outside my house every day. Rachel had always taken my things without asking, but would she really change my whole backyard without permission? The next morning, Rachel sent me a text message that made me feel really scared. It said, "Just making your backyard amazing. You're going to love it when you see it." She also sent me a picture that made my heart beat really fast. It showed part of my backyard, but my fence was completely gone, and there was a huge hole dug in the ground where my flower garden used to be. In the back of the picture, I could see my patio furniture covered with plastic sheets. I immediately called my boss and told her about the emergency at home. "I'm really sorry, but there's a big problem at my house. My sister is making changes to my property without asking me. I need to come home right away." My boss was very understanding. "We've already finished the most important parts of the project. The team here can handle the rest of the meetings. Family emergencies are more important than work. Let me know how things go." I bought a plane ticket for the next flight back to Tampa, which was 2 days earlier than I was supposed to come home. I didn't tell Rachel I was coming back early because part of me hoped Mr. Garcia was wrong, and the picture just showed a small repair instead of major construction. But as my plane was taking off from Seattle, I got another text from Rachel. "I hope you don't mind, but we're redoing your whole backyard. Mark thinks your old fence was ugly and your flower garden was in the wrong place." During the long flight home, I couldn't think about anything else. My mind was full of questions and worries. What exactly were they doing to my house? Why would Rachel do this to me? How much damage had they already done? The 4-hour flight felt like it took forever. When I got off the plane in Tampa, I rented a car instead of calling an Uber like I usually do. I wanted to be able to leave quickly if I needed to, depending on what I found at my house. The drive from the airport to my neighborhood usually takes about 35 minutes. Today, with my hands holding the steering wheel so tight they hurt, it felt like it took only a few minutes. As I turned onto my street, I felt like I might throw up. There were 5 big vehicles parked in front of my house. Rachel's old car, Mark's truck, a big van that said Williams Construction on the side, and 2 pickup trucks full of building supplies. This wasn't just fixing a broken fence or planting some flowers. This was major construction work, and I never said they could do it. I sat in my car for a few minutes trying to calm down and stop my hands from shaking. Part of me wanted to drive away and pretend this wasn't happening, or maybe call the police right away. But I needed to see exactly what was going on and deal with this situation myself. With shaking hands, I got my house keys out of my purse and walked up to my front door. I noticed that my doorbell was missing, and there were just loose wires sticking out where it used to be. I took a deep breath and used my key to open the door. The first thing I noticed was the smell, lots of dust, paint, and something chemical that made my nose burn. Then I saw what they had done to my house. My beautiful front hallway looked completely different. The wooden floors I had paid a lot of money to fix were covered with plastic sheets and had paint spilled all over them. The walls that I had painted a nice light blue were half stripped, with patches of bright yellow paint in some places. I walked further into my house, and each step showed me more terrible things. My living room furniture had been pushed to one side and covered with old sheets. There were paint samples taped all over one wall in colors I would never choose: bright orange, neon green, and a purple so dark it looked almost black. But the worst part was my bathroom. The door had been taken off, and inside was complete destruction. My pretty bathtub that I had saved up for months to buy was gone. The toilet was sitting in the hallway, not connected to anything. The marble counter and sink that I had installed just last year was broken into pieces and piled in the corner. Feeling more and more upset, I walked toward my kitchen, which was my favorite room in the whole house. This was where I cooked dinner for my friends, where I baked cookies using my grandma's recipe, and where I drank coffee and read books on quiet Sunday mornings. But now it was completely changed. The countertops had been ripped out. My cabinets were missing. Even the floor had been torn up in some places so you could see the boards underneath. My refrigerator and stove had been unplugged and pushed to the middle of the room. Standing in the middle of all this mess was my sister Rachel, wearing work clothes covered in paint and holding what looked like building plans. Next to her was her boyfriend Mark, smiling in a mean way as he leaned against what was left of my kitchen counter. Behind them, Mark's parents were telling 2 workers where to put a new sink. For a few seconds, nobody saw me standing there. I was so shocked I couldn't move or speak. I couldn't believe that someone would destroy my house like this. Then Rachel looked up and saw me. Instead of looking sorry or embarrassed, her face got really happy and excited. "Jenny, you came home early," she said, like I had just walked into my own surprise birthday party instead of finding my house being destroyed. "We wanted to get more done before you got back." What did you do to my house?" I whispered, my voice so quiet I could barely hear myself. Rachel spread her arms wide, pointing to all the destruction around us. "We're completely redoing everything before we move in permanently. Isn't it exciting? Mark's parents know all about construction, so they're helping us do it right." "Move in permanently?" I repeated, thinking I must have heard wrong. Mark stepped forward and put his arm around Rachel. "We figured since you're always busy with work and traveling, you wouldn't care if we made this our real home." Rachel has always loved this neighborhood. Mrs. Williams, a woman with fake blonde hair who looked really serious, nodded like she agreed completely. The layout was all wrong for a family anyway. Too many small, separate rooms. "We're making it more open and modern," she said. Mr. Williams added, "That bathroom was really old-fashioned. Who needs a bathtub these days? We're putting in a walk-in shower that's much more practical." They all looked at me like they expected me to say thank you. When I didn't say anything right away, they looked at each other and then started laughing like my shocked face was the funniest thing they had ever seen. "Your face." Mark laughed really loud. "You look like you've seen a monster." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes because she was laughing so hard. Don't worry, sis. We know what we're doing. This place is going to look amazing when we're finished. I couldn't understand what was happening. These people had come into my house, destroyed my things, and now they were laughing at how upset I was. I had a million things I wanted to say, from screaming to calling the police right away. Instead, I could only say one word. Okay. Then I turned around and walked to my bedroom because I needed to be alone and think about what to do. But even my bedroom, the one place that was supposed to be private and safe, had been ruined too. My bed had been moved to the middle of the room and covered with a plastic sheet. My dresser drawers were open with clothes falling out everywhere. The walls that I had painted a nice green color were covered with white primer paint. I opened my closet and found all my personal things had been shoved inside without any care. Photo albums, books, and special things I had collected from trips were piled up in messy heaps. I looked everywhere for the wooden box that had my most special things: my grandma's ring, letters from my dad who died when I was little, and photos that were too important to keep on my computer. After 10 minutes of frantic searching, I found it under a pile of sweaters. The lock was broken, and when I opened it, several things were missing, including my grandma's gold necklace with a heart on it. I sat on the edge of my covered bed with shaking hands and tried to think clearly. This wasn't just remodeling my house. This was them trying to steal my house from me. There was a knock on my bedroom door, and Rachel came in without waiting for me to say it was okay. "So, what do you think?" she asked, pointing to the mess they had made of my room. "We're thinking light pink for the walls, and we're getting rid of that old desk. Mark needs space for his video game setup." "Rachel," I said, my voice stronger than I expected it to be, "who said you could remodel my house?" She laughed like I had just told a silly joke. "Come on, Jenny. We talked about this. You said we could stay here." "I said you could stay temporarily on my couch. I never said you could move in forever. And I definitely never said you could tear apart my house." Rachel's smile got smaller. "But you're never here anyway. You're always working or going on business trips. It doesn't make sense for you to have this big house all by yourself when we need the space." "This is my house," I said firmly. "I paid for it. My name is on all the papers that say I own it." "Don't be so selfish," Rachel said, using that whiny voice she used with our parents when she wanted something. "We're family. What belongs to you also belongs to me, right? That's what Mom and Dad always said." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I need you to stop all this construction work right now. This is not your house to change." Rachel's face got hard and mean. "Well, it's too late for that. The bathroom is already completely torn apart, and we've already paid the workers a lot of money. Besides, Mark's parents have put their own money into making these improvements." "Improvements I didn't ask for and don't want," I pointed out. She just shrugged her shoulders. "You'll thank us when it's all done. The house will be worth more money." "And who's going to be living in this more valuable house?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "All of us, of course. One big, happy family," she said, but she wouldn't look me in the eyes. "Anyway, we have to get back to work. The floor guys are coming tomorrow to talk about new flooring." As she started to leave, I asked, "Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? My bed is covered in plastic, and the bathroom doesn't work." Rachel looked back at me like it wasn't a big deal. "Oh, we set up a cot in the basement. It's just temporary while the work is being done. Or you could get a hotel room. I guess you can afford it with your big salary." Then she left and closed the door behind me. I sat there in complete shock, trying to process not just that my house was destroyed, but that my own sister didn't care about my feelings, my property, or my rights at all. Something Rachel had said seemed strange to me. She said, "We talked about this, but we never did." Not once had she mentioned remodeling or moving in permanently. Was she lying to me, or did she really believe we had talked about it? Either way, I needed to understand exactly what was happening and why, and I needed proof before I decided what to do next. After I calmed down a little, I decided to find out more information before I confronted Rachel and her family again. I pretended like I was okay with everything and told them I needed to go run some errands after my long flight. Really, I sat in my car down the street and started making phone calls to my bank and insurance company to see if anything strange had happened. What I found out made me even more worried. Someone had tried to get into my savings account 4 times in the past week, but my password kept them out. My insurance company told me that someone pretending to be me had called about adding more people to my house insurance, but they couldn't answer the security questions correctly. Around 6 o'clock that evening, I watched Mark's parents leave in their van. An hour later, the construction workers left too. I waited another half hour, then quietly came back to my house, using my key to go in through the back door that leads straight to the kitchen. I could hear voices from the living room, Rachel, Mark, and what sounded like Mark's dad, who must have come back. I crept closer, staying hidden, and started recording with my phone. The bathroom demo went really well today, Mark was saying. Tomorrow we start on the master bedroom. I think we should make that our room, and we can use the second bedroom for Mom and Dad. What about Jenny? Rachel asked, but she didn't sound very worried about it. Mark made a mean sound. What about her? She's never here, anyway. She can have the tiny bedroom near the washing machine, if she's even around. She seemed pretty mad earlier, Rachel said, sounding a little worried now. Who cares? Mark's father said gruffly. Once we've put enough money into fixing this place up, she can't just kick us out. We'll have rights to the place. My friend who's a lawyer says it's called something like constructive ownership. Mark added, if we improve the house and live here long enough, we can claim we own part of it. I felt sick to my stomach. They weren't just remodeling without permission. They were actively trying to steal my house from me. I found some of her important papers in her home office, Rachel said casually. Her house payments are less than what we were paying for rent in that crummy apartment. We'll save so much money living here. Did you find the ownership papers like I asked? Mr. Williams asked. Not yet, but I have her birth certificate and social security card. I found them in that wooden box in her closet, along with some old jewelry. I thought we could sell the jewelry to help pay for the new kitchen stuff. My blood felt like ice water. They had stolen my identity papers and my grandma's jewelry. This wasn't just crossing boundaries anymore. This was against the law. What if Jenny won't go along with our plan? Rachel asked, sounding worried for the first time. Mark laughed in a mean way. She always gives you whatever you want eventually. Your parents made sure of that, didn't they? Poor Jenny always having to share with her little sister. Besides, Mr. Williams added, who wants to live in a construction zone? This remodeling will take months. She'll get tired of all the noise and dust and move out on her own. Then we just don't let her back in. I talked to your parents yesterday, Mark said to Rachel. They think it's great that we're all going to be living together. Your mom said Jenny needs to support family, like she always has. They're coming to visit next weekend, Rachel replied. We can show them the remodeling plans then. I had heard enough. Very carefully, I went back to the back door and slipped outside again. In my car, I played back the recording to make sure it had captured their conversation clearly. It had. My mind was spinning. My own sister was planning to steal my house with my parents thinking it was okay. They had taken my personal papers, stolen family jewelry, and were planning to make my life so awful that I would leave my own home. And they were using twisted ideas about family loyalty to make it seem right. I drove to a nearby hotel and got a room for the night. In the quiet hotel room, I finally let myself feel how hurt and angry I was. I cried until I had no more tears, then washed my face with cold water and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. They will not take what's mine, I told myself firmly. Not my house, not my identity, not my peace of mind. I opened my laptop computer and started researching. First, I looked up constructive ownership and found out that what Mark had described was a twisted version of property laws that wouldn't work in this situation anyway. Then I searched for lawyers who specialize in property rights and identity theft. By midnight, I had a plan. It wouldn't be easy, and it would probably permanently hurt my relationship with Rachel and maybe my parents too. But I had been pushed too far. It was time to stand up for myself, even against family. Before going to sleep, I made one more call to Mr. Garcia, my neighbor. Jenny, dear, are you all right? Did you make it home okay? Yes, Mr. Garcia, I'm home. I was wondering, would you be willing to make a statement about the construction you've seen at my house and maybe testify that you never heard me give permission for any remodeling? There was a pause. Then Mr. Garcia said firmly, Absolutely. What that girl is doing to your beautiful home is wrong. You just tell me what you need. For the first time since opening my front door to chaos, I felt a little bit hopeful. I wasn't alone in this fight. I spent a sleepless night planning what I would do next. By morning, I was exhausted but determined. I took a shower, put on clean clothes, and started making the phone calls that would put my plan into action. My first call that morning was to Lisa Martinez, a lawyer who helps people with property disputes. A colleague at work had recommended her. Her office said they could see me right away when I explained how urgent my situation was. Lisa was a smart, no-nonsense woman in her 40s who listened carefully as I described what had happened and played the recording I had made. "This is terrible," she said when I finished, "but also something we can take legal action on in several ways. Unauthorized construction, identity theft, stealing property, possible fraud. We need to move fast." We made a detailed plan. First, we would document everything thoroughly. Second, we would secure my financial and personal information. Third, we would prepare legal notices. And finally, we would get law enforcement involved. "Taking your personal documents and jewelry is theft," Lisa explained. "The unauthorized construction is property damage and trespassing. Even though you initially said they could stay temporarily, their recorded statements show they clearly intend to defraud you of your property." From Lisa's office, I went straight to my bank. I met with the manager and explained what was happening. We closed all my old accounts and opened new ones with better security. I put a freeze on my credit and set up alerts for fraud. Next, I went to the local police station to file a report about the theft of my identity documents and jewelry. The officer who took my statement, Detective Johnson, listened sympathetically. "Family situations can be the hardest," she said. "But what they're doing is clearly illegal. We'll send officers with you tomorrow morning to document the damage and get your stolen property back." "Tomorrow?" I asked, wanting to move faster. Detective Johnson nodded. "We need to prepare the right paperwork, and honestly, it's better to let them keep thinking they're getting away with it. Document everything they do in the meantime." I spent the rest of the day taking care of practical things. I found a short-term apartment I could rent if I needed to. I called my home insurance company to report the unauthorized renovations. I contacted my boss, Linda, to update her on the situation and ask for a few more days off work, which she gladly gave me. "Take whatever time you need," she said. "Your home is at stake." I also called the city building department and confirmed what I suspected. No permits had been filed for construction work at my address. The inspector I spoke with, Mr. Thompson, was particularly worried about potential safety violations. Unpermitted bathroom and kitchen renovations can be dangerous and expensive to fix correctly, he explained. "We'll send someone to inspect the property tomorrow along with the police." By late afternoon, I had one more difficult call to make, to my parents. I dreaded this conversation, knowing they always took Rachel's side. Still, they needed to hear the truth from me before Rachel told them her version of what happened. My mom answered after 3 rings. "Jenny, Rachel told us you came back from your trip early. Is everything okay?"
"No, Mom."
"Everything is not okay," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Rachel and Mark have basically destroyed my house without permission. They've taken my personal documents and some of my jewelry. They're planning to force me out and take over my home." There was a long silence. Then my mom sighed. "I'm sure it's not that bad, honey. Rachel said they're just helping fix up a few things while you're busy with work. You know how much she likes decorating." "This isn't decorating, Mom. My bathroom is destroyed. My kitchen is half torn apart. They've taken over my bedroom and shoved my things into closets. They stole Grandma's necklace." "I'm sure she was just keeping it safe," my mom said dismissively. "You two have always shared everything." "I never shared my house with her. I never gave permission for any of this." My mom's voice got harder. "Family helps family, Jenny. You have that big house all to yourself, and Rachel and Mark need a place to live. Can't you just be generous for once?" Her words hurt, but they also confirmed what I had heard in the recording. My parents were supporting Rachel's takeover of my home. "Mom, I've been generous my entire life, especially with Rachel. But this goes beyond being generous. This is about respect for my property and my boundaries. I'm going to have to take legal action if they don't leave." Legal action against your own sister? My mom sounded shocked. What would your father say? He'd say the same thing you're saying, that I should give Rachel whatever she wants because she's family. But I can't do that anymore, Mom. Not with my home. You'll regret this, Jenny. Family is all we have in this world. Families should support each other, not steal from each other, I replied. I love you and Dad, but I need to protect myself now. The call ended with my mom crying and me feeling both guilty and determined. I had expected this reaction, but it still hurt. That evening, I went back to the hotel with takeout food and my laptop. I made a detailed list of everything in my house, including photos from before the renovation started. I wrote down every conversation I could remember with Rachel about her staying with me, emphasizing that it was supposed to be temporary. I also prepared for the worst-case scenario, a long legal battle. I figured out my finances, calculating how long I could afford both legal fees and temporary housing if necessary. Before going to bed, I texted Rachel, I'm staying at a hotel tonight since the house is unlivable. We need to talk about this situation tomorrow. Her reply came quickly. Don't be so dramatic. The house is fine, but whatever. See you tomorrow. Her dismissive tone made me even more determined. For too long, I had let Rachel and my parents ignore my feelings and boundaries. That ended now. I set my alarm for 6 a.m., knowing I needed to be prepared for what would probably be the most confrontational day of my life. As I fell asleep, I reminded myself that standing up for myself wasn't mean. It was necessary. I woke up before my alarm because I was so nervous. After a quick shower and coffee, I met Detective Johnson and Officer Martinez in the police station parking lot at 7:30. We have the warrant to enter your house and recover your stolen property, Detective Johnson explained. The building inspector will meet us there. Lisa, my lawyer, joined us, carrying a folder of legal papers. I've prepared an eviction notice and a stop work order for the unauthorized construction, she explained. Once we document everything, we'll serve these papers. We agreed to arrive separately. I would go in first with my key, followed by the officers and Lisa. The building inspector, Mr. Thompson, would arrive a few minutes later, so we wouldn't overwhelm everyone at once. At 8 a.m. exactly, I pulled into my driveway. The construction van and trucks were already there, along with Mark's pickup truck. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves, and walked up to my front door. I used my key to enter and found the house already busy with activity. Workers were carrying broken pieces from my bathroom through the living room. The sound of power tools came from the kitchen. Rachel and Mark were standing in the hallway looking at what appeared to be paint samples. Jenny, Rachel said, looking up. You're back. Look at these paint colors for the living room. I'm thinking the bright yellow would look amazing with a new wall color. Before I could respond, Detective Johnson and Officer Martinez entered behind me, followed by Lisa. Rachel's expression changed from surprise to confusion. Who are these people? I'm Detective Johnson with Tampa Police, the detective said, showing her badge. We have a warrant to search these premises and recover stolen property belonging to Jenny Davis. Mark stepped forward angrily. What the heck is this? You called the cops on us. He glared at me with pure hatred. I didn't give permission for any renovations, I said calmly. And someone took my personal documents and my grandmother's jewelry from my bedroom. This is ridiculous, Rachel cried. We're family. We're just helping improve your house. Lisa stepped forward. I'm Lisa Martinez, Miss Davis's attorney. I have here a stop work order for all unauthorized construction, as well as an eviction notice requiring you to leave the premises immediately. Eviction? You can't evict us. Mark shouted. This is our home too. Actually, it's not, I replied. My name is the only one on the deed and mortgage. You were invited as temporary guests, not permanent residents, and certainly not authorized to renovate. The noise had gotten everyone's attention. Mark's parents came out of the kitchen, and the workers stopped what they were doing to watch what was happening. What's going on here? Mr. Williams demanded, his face turning red when he saw the police officers. At that moment, Mr. Thompson from the building department arrived with his clipboard. I'm here to inspect the unpermitted construction work, he announced. The chaos that followed was both terrible and satisfying. Detective Johnson and Officer Martinez started taking pictures of the damage to the house, while Mr. Thompson looked at the destroyed bathroom and kitchen, shaking his head in disapproval. "This work violates multiple building codes," he declared. "No permits were filed. I'm issuing a stop work order immediately." The construction workers, looking worried, started packing up their tools. One of them came up to me directly. "We were told you had approved all this work," he said apologetically. "If we'd known it wasn't authorized, we never would have started." Mark tried a different approach. "Jenny gave us this house as a gift," he claimed. "She said we could make it our own. This is just a misunderstanding." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Do you have documentation of this alleged gift? A deed transfer, perhaps?" "It was a verbal agreement," Mark insisted. "Between family." "That's not how real estate transfers work," Lisa replied dryly. "And Miss Davis has recordings of you and your family discussing your plan to force her out of her own home." Mark's face went pale. Rachel burst into tears. "You recorded us," she wailed. "How could you spy on your own sister? How could you steal my house?" I countered. "How could you take Grandma's necklace and my personal documents?" Detective Johnson returned from my bedroom holding a small jewelry box. "We found these in the nightstand of the room Mr. and Mrs. Williams are using," she said, opening it to reveal my birth certificate, social security card, and several pieces of jewelry, including my grandmother's necklace. "Those are mine," I confirmed, relief washing over me at seeing the recovered items. Rachel's tears suddenly stopped, replaced by cold anger. "You always were selfish, Jenny. Mom and Dad said we needed to share, but you never learned that lesson, did you?" "Sharing is voluntary," I replied. "What you're doing isn't sharing, it's taking." "We put money into this place," Mr. Williams interjected. "We've invested thousands in materials already." "Without permission," Lisa pointed out. "That doesn't give you ownership rights. In fact, you may be liable for the cost of restoring the property to its original condition." The situation got worse quickly. Mark started shouting threats about lawsuits and getting revenge. Rachel went back and forth between crying and accusing me of betraying family. Mrs. Williams started frantically gathering their personal belongings while Mr. Williams argued loudly with the building inspector about the quality of their unpermitted work. Through it all, I stayed calm, supported by Lisa's steady presence and the authority of the officers. When Mark stepped toward me aggressively, Officer Martinez moved between us, clearly warning him to back off. "You have 2 hours to collect your personal belongings and leave the premises," Detective Johnson announced. "We'll remain here while you do so." "And where are we supposed to go?" Rachel demanded. "That's not Jenny's problem," Lisa said firmly. "You had a place to live before you decided to take over hers." As they reluctantly started collecting their things, Rachel made one last appeal to me. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this. Is that what you want? To destroy our family?" For a moment, doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? Was I putting property before family? Then I remembered the recording, their callous plan to push me out of my own home, the theft of my most precious keepsakes. "You destroyed our relationship when you decided to steal from me instead of asking for help," I said quietly. "I would have helped you find a place, maybe even loaned you money for a security deposit. But you chose deception and theft over honesty." Rachel had no response to that. She turned away and joined Mark in gathering their belongings. 2 hours later, they were gone. The construction workers had removed their equipment after Mr. Thompson spoke with them about the permit violations. Detective Johnson had taken statements from everyone involved and assured me they would be investigating the identity theft and property conversion. As the police car pulled away, I stood in my driveway with Lisa and looked at my house from the outside. It looked the same as always, a modest 2-bedroom house with white shutters and a blue door. But inside was destruction that would take months and thousands of dollars to repair. "What happens now?" I asked Lisa. "Now we document everything for insurance and potential civil action," she replied. "I'll file for a restraining order to keep them from returning, and you'll need to change your locks immediately." I nodded, exhausted but relieved. The confrontation was over, but the rebuilding was just beginning, both for my house and possibly for my family relationships. As Lisa drove away, my phone rang. It was my mother. I took a deep breath and answered, ready for the next battle. How could you? My mother's voice shook with anger. Rachel called us crying. She said you had the police throw them out onto the street. Is that who you've become, Jenny? Someone who calls the police on her own sister? I leaned against my car, looking at the garden I had planted last spring. Mom, Rachel and Mark were destroying my house without permission. They stole my identity documents and Grandma's necklace. What would you have had me do? Family works things out privately, she insisted. Your father and I are heartbroken. Rachel says you wouldn't even discuss it with her. That's not true, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I tried to talk to her when I first got home. She completely dismissed my concerns, and I overheard them planning to force me out of my own house. My mother scoffed. She would never do that. You've always been jealous of Rachel, always complaining that we favored her. The accusation stung, but I recognized it as a way to avoid the real issue. Mom, I have recordings of their conversations. I have police reports documenting the theft and property damage. This isn't about childhood jealousy. Recordings? You spied on your sister? My mother sounded scandalized. In my own home, which she was demolishing without permission, I pointed out. Mom, I need to know. Did you tell Rachel it was okay for her to renovate my house and move in permanently? There was a telling pause. We might have mentioned that it would be nice if you two could live together. You have all that space, and Rachel and Mark have been struggling. So you encourage this? Another pause. Not the renovation exactly, but yes, we thought it would be good for both of you to share the house. The confirmation hurt, but it wasn't surprising. Mom, I worked for 8 years to afford this house. It's mine. If Rachel needs help with housing, there are ways to address that without taking over my property. You sound so cold, talking about property and ownership. This is your sister. And this is my life, my home, my boundaries, I replied. I took a deep breath. I love you and Dad, and I love Rachel despite what she's done. But I won't allow anyone to disrespect me this way, not even family. Well, my mother said after a long silence, I hope you're happy with your empty house and your precious boundaries. Your sister needed you, and you failed her. The call ended, leaving me emotionally drained but resolute. I had expected this reaction, had prepared for it, but it still hurt deeply to be cast as the villain in a situation where I was clearly the victim. The next few weeks were a blur of insurance claims, contractor estimates, and legal proceedings. The damage to my house was extensive. The bathroom needed to be completely rebuilt. The kitchen required new cabinets, countertops, and flooring. Walls needed to be repaired and repainted throughout the house. The insurance company initially balked at covering the damage, arguing that I had given permission for Rachel and Mark to stay in the house. But with Lisa's help and the police reports documenting the unauthorized nature of the renovations, they eventually agreed to cover most of the repairs, minus a substantial deductible. I took a week off work to deal with the immediate issues, sleeping on an air mattress in my bedroom since my bed had been damaged during the attempted renovation. Linda and my colleagues were incredibly supportive, with several of them coming over on a Saturday to help clear debris and clean areas that weren't structurally damaged. I can't believe your sister did this, Linda said as we sorted through the kitchen items that had been carelessly packed in boxes. Family or not, this is criminal behavior. The worst part is my parents taking her side, I admitted. They honestly believe I'm in the wrong for not letting her take my house. That's some serious enabling behavior, Linda observed. Have you thought about talking to someone professional about all this? It's a lot to process on your own. She was right. The next day, I found a therapist who specializes in family trauma, Dr. Sarah Kim. Our first session was revealing. What you're describing is a lifetime of boundary violations, Dr. Kim said after I recounted the history with Rachel. Your sister learned early that your boundaries didn't matter, and your parents reinforced that lesson. This house incident is just the most extreme example of a pattern that's been in place since childhood. Over the following months, as my house slowly came back together, I also began the process of rebuilding my sense of self. Dr. Kim helped me recognize the patterns that had led to this crisis and develop strategies for establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries. The legal consequences for Rachel and Mark were significant, but not severe. They were ordered to pay restitution for the damage not covered by insurance. The identity theft charges were reduced when they returned all my documents. No one served jail time, which was a relief despite everything. 4 months after the confrontation, my mother called unexpectedly. Her voice sounded different, less defensive, more tentative. "Your father and I visited Rachel and Mark in their new apartment yesterday," she began. "Oh." I responded neutrally, having learned to protect myself emotionally in these conversations. "It was eye-opening," she continued. "The place is a disaster, Jenny. Holes punched in walls, broken furniture, filthy conditions. And they're already 2 months behind on rent, according to the notice taped to their door." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, genuinely concerned despite everything. I think we might have been wrong about some things," my mother admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. "We always saw Rachel as the one who needed more help, more support. We didn't see how she took advantage." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. "Thank you for saying that, Mom." "How's the house coming along?" she asked, changing the subject slightly. "It's getting there. The bathroom is finally functional again. The kitchen still needs work. Would it be all right if your father and I came to see it sometime? Maybe take you to dinner?" The olive branch was small but significant. "I'd like that, Mom." 2 weeks later, my parents visited. They were appropriately shocked by the remaining damage and, for the first time, didn't try to minimize or excuse Rachel's actions. Over dinner at my favorite Mexican restaurant, my father reached across the table and took my hand. "We didn't protect you the way we should have," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "As parents, we failed to teach Rachel about respect and consequences. And we failed you by always expecting you to give in. I'm sorry, Jenny." Tears filled my eyes.
"Thank you, Dad."
That means everything to me. Our relationship began to heal slowly, with occasional setbacks, but with genuine effort on both sides. As for Rachel, she eventually reached out 6 months after the incident. We met at a neutral coffee shop, both of us nervous and guarded. "I've been in therapy," she said after we'd settled with our drinks. "Turns out I have some issues with entitlement and boundaries." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "What I did to your house was wrong," she acknowledged. At the time, I genuinely believed I was entitled to it. "That's messed up, I know that now." "It is," I agreed. "But I appreciate you saying it." "Mark and I broke up," she added. "He wanted to sue you for the renovation costs. When I said that was crazy, he got really angry. That's when I finally saw what everyone else had been seeing." We talked for 2 hours, covering painful ground but also finding moments of the connection we'd had as children, before expectations and entitlement had poisoned our relationship. I didn't invite Rachel back to stay with me, and she didn't ask. Instead, I helped her find resources for affordable housing and recommended her for an entry-level position at a company where a friend worked. Small steps toward independence that she would have to maintain herself. A year after the renovation disaster, my house was finally restored, in some ways better than before. I'd taken the opportunity to make updates I'd been planning anyway, choosing every fixture and finish myself. On the anniversary of that terrible homecoming, I hosted a small dinner party for the people who had helped me through the crisis: Linda and her husband, Lisa, Mr. Garcia, and 2 colleagues who had spent weekends helping with repairs. As we sat around my dining table enjoying good food and better company, Linda raised her glass in a toast. To Jenny, who learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can say is no, and that the hardest boundaries to set are often the most important ones. Everyone clinked glasses, and warmth filled me that had nothing to do with the wine. I had lost some things this past year: the blind trust in my sister, the unquestioning support of my parents, the naive belief that family would never truly hurt me. But I had gained something far more valuable: the knowledge that I was strong enough to stand up for myself, even against those I loved. That setting boundaries wasn't selfish, but necessary for healthy relationships. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their destructive behavior. As my guests chatted and laughed around me, I realized that I had created a different kind of family here, one built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and genuine care. The kind of family I deserved all along. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? Sometimes the hardest lesson is learning that true love includes respect for each other's space and property. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to Glow Girl Revenge to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Share this with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves, even when it's uncomfortable. And leave a comment telling me about a time when you had to choose between keeping the peace and self-respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's how we teach others to treat us with the respect we deserve.